Our next speaker is Mr. John van Oudenaren, Director of World Digital Library of the Library of Congress. Mr. Oudenaren, in May of this year, attended a meeting in Warsaw on the 4th International Conference of the UNESCO, dedicated to the culture, memory, and identity of the world. And today, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. John Oudenaren, who would share with us his thoughts on the Warsaw Declaration that was adopted in May of this year at that conference. Mr. Oudenaren, please.
If I pronounced correctly your name, I apologize.
No, that was quite good. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Maria called me just the other day when she, I guess, learned that I had been in Warsaw and asked me to say a few words here. So I will add something that's probably not directly relevant to Katyn, but may be helpful to you in as you pursue your quest to get the word out. I direct, just by way of background, I direct a project at the Library of Congress called the World Digital Library, which is a big internet project, www.wgl.org, to put all of the world's great cultural treasures and important historical documents on the internet and make them available for free. Go on the site, you see the Gutenberg Bible, Arabic scientific manuscripts, Chinese rare books, all kinds of very interesting materials. Now, and we cooperate with UNESCO, which is where the connection with the Warsaw Declaration comes in. Now, as I'm sure all of you know, but probably haven't experienced as much as I have in my everyday work, culture, history in the international context and in the UN context is a very strange game, because there's a lot of politics that enter in. Generally speaking, in our project, we try to avoid politics. We political controversies, because we want to get rare Hebrew manuscripts or maps of the Holy Land without getting into the whole Palestinian issue. We want to get Armenian Christian manuscripts from the 6th and 7th century without having to get into the Nagorno-Karabakh issue. We want to be able to get the great Chinese treasures that happen to be in Taiwan without getting into issues of one China, two China, and so on. So we try to avoid politics, but in the case of Katyn, that's a little bit the shoes on the other foot, because here's a case where we as the Library of Congress, we as Americans, we as people who don't think things should be kept secret for bad reasons, it's a little bit the shoes on the other foot, where the people wanting to avoid politics, where we might be more sympathetic to a more politically forward-leaning approach to get the word out or get the documents made available. So it's a kind of a tricky line that we have to walk in international cultural politics, and of course the UN any UN agency is a complex environment to work in. Now, getting to the Warsaw Declaration per se, that is linked to a UNESCO project called Memory of the World. Now, Memory of the World is a register of important historical documents that belong to the legacy of humanity as a whole. You've probably all heard of UNESCO heritage sites, the pyramids, the Acropolis, and so on and so forth. About 20 years ago, a number of people raised the idea that, well, in addition to these physical sites, there are documents, Bibles, manuscripts, constitutional documents, and so on and so forth, that also belong to the heritage of humanity, and they should be preserved. Things from Poland, for example, that are on that list, and it is a list, would be Chopin's scores, Copernicus's writings, the first Polish constitution, and so on. So that's the idea, to come up with this list and to make sure that natural disasters, conflicts, and so on don't lead to the destruction of these documents, as happened in Sarajevo and in other places, by making sure that anything on this list is given adequate protection. Now, in the Katyn case, it's a little bit different story, because here you have documents that are not threatened by wars or natural disasters. What you have are documents that haven't been made fully available. And the document, incidentally, is not just a piece of paper. It can be a photograph, map, it could be an oral history, it could be a recording of a Katyn survivor or a child of a Katyn survivor, and so on. It's the complete documentary record. So the relevance of the Warsaw Declaration to Katyn and what you're doing here is a little bit oblique, because for political reasons and because of what the mandate of UNESCO Memory of the World is, it's focusing mainly on protecting of things that are already out there and need protecting, not necessarily opening up access to things that people, for political reasons, for protecting, for whatever reason, we don't need to go into that, are hiding things. Could Memory of the World be used as a lever, as an incentive to open up information? Probably, but it has to be done quite carefully and in a thought-out way. And in that regard, the Polish organizers of the conference did stress in the 2 days that we were there, in addition to the general business of UNESCO Memory of the World that was carried out, there was a very heavy emphasis in the presentations and so on about the unique situation of Poland, the losses, the loss of memory, the things that have been destroyed, the efforts to recover memory, and so on and so forth. But and they did a very good job with that. But there are, of course, limits to how far you can take that, because right away you get into situations where the Caribbean countries came up and said, well, we had slavery, that's just as bad or worse. And you have somebody from Rwanda was there saying, well, how does this compare with Rwanda, and so on. And there are a lot of sad stories out there in the 20th century, as one of the previous speakers said, has had an atrocious record of 250 million people killed, more than half by their own government. So there's a lot of competition out there for recognition of dreadful things that have happened. So that's just a quick report on what happened at Warsaw, the Warsaw Declaration. You have, Maria put a copy of it in your folder, and I would urge you to read it. It's written in that bland sort of UN speak, that something can mean exactly the opposite of what it seems to mean, and vice versa. But if anybody wants to talk further with me about how Library of Congress activities, World Digital Library, our relationship to UNESCO, et cetera, all of the complex of things I've talked about could serve the effort that you're pushing here or promoting here, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess the Polish-American community considers the lost Katyn documents as the world documentary heritage. And we will try to make that point continue.